All right. Good afternoon to everyone. I guess good morning still out on the West Coast. Welcome to this edition of the MSP Success webinar series. We've got a really hot topic here, and I will say on this, I don't know if it's the money we're giving away or the title. I'm going to say it's a title because we've given away money, or Dell has given away money before on these. Always very generous, but we've got a great registration for this webinar, and really looking at it is what do you do for your clients or your MSP when a data breach occurs? How do you maintain that cyber resilience? How do you combat the 21st century disaster as it talks about on the screen? We've got Jason Proctor. Jason is new to this webinar series, something new that we're doing this year here. Jason's an advisory systems engineer around cyber resilience in the Global Technology Office with Dell here. He is speaking all the time on this topic. He's actually in Minneapolis this week, speaking there. He's going to be, for those in the MSP channel that are on here, Jason's going to be speaking at Kaseya Connect IT Global later in late April. And so watch for him there as well. Very well respected here, and a ton of stuff that you've got to being able to have that cyber resilience plan in place for when you or your client gets attacked. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, then just anticipate that it probably will, no matter what you're doing there. And so you want to make sure that you are prepared when that happens, which is why all of you are actually on this call here today. And so I've got a couple things before I turn it over to Jason. One of these is you should have both chat and Q&A or questions on there. If you do have a question for Jason, then just post that up in the Q&A or the question area there. I'll be watching that. We will get to as many of those questions as we can. If you just have a quick comment, not a question that you have that you want to get answered, then go and post that up. And here's what I would ask you to do is that go ahead and post up of where you are watching this from there in the chat. Just let us know, where are you watching from? I see Michael. See, Michael, you did it wrong. You did it in the question side, but you're in Oklahoma City, I think is where you're at there with it. But all Las Vegas, Ohio, Maui, Rhode Island, Atlanta, Dayton, Ohio. All right, on and on. And you guys are committed to your business because you're watching. Oh, I've got a Franklin, Tennessee. Someone's like probably looking right outside my office here. There. You guys are committed to your business because you're watching this instead of watching college basketball right now. As that just started here today with March Madness. Zambia, Jason, we've got someone on here from Zambia here. So you're international. Serbia is another one that's on here. And so that's great. I appreciate it, everyone. We've got a packed call with this here. Now, one other thing before I turn it over to Jason is that Dell has given away $2,500 through MSP Success Magazine on today's call. So 5 of you must be present here to win at the end of the call. 5 of you are going to walk away from today's call with a $500 Visa gift card. And we're going to be doing that drawing here at the end of the call here today. And I see Donald's on here. Donald is on here, but he's also watching basketball at the same time there. So he's double dipping there with the college basketball and the webinar with it. So we've got a lot of good stuff here that's coming here. I'm glad that we've got a great crowd here. And Jason from, I'm sure, sunny and warm Minneapolis, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Jeff, thank you very much. And yeah, I'm scrolling through just to get an idea where everybody's coming from. I did see a Denmark. There's a couple battling for the furthest away, by the way, right now.
I like to hear hanging with the family at Disney World, standing in line. So that's very easily better. Can you watch a whole webinar when you're in line at Disney
Depends
World.
On the ride. Obviously, somebody didn't get the fast pass. So, coming from a Disney veteran with kids that have all grown up. I don't have to take them anymore, unfortunately. But well over 20 trips to Disney. But yeah, I'm sure I'm not kind of competing with Jared up there in North Dakota. Jeff in Loveland, Colorado. I take the pass quite often between Denver and a little area that I like to call Breckenridge, my home away from home. So definitely thank you everybody for joining and taking some time out of watching the tournament. And if you see the television screen flash colors, that's because the tournament's on literally above my head. So hey, we all did a bracket at some layer. So so at the end of the day, kind of what I talk about, and I do work with our partners quite often. That is part of what my job is. So an advisory systems engineer out of Dell's Global Technology Office. First and foremost, I'm here for our customers. I present to our customers. I'm here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, had 2 presentations yesterday with 2 very large customers. Not just about cyber recovery, but the overall concept of cyber resilience. And it's a very timely topic with a lot of the things that are in the news. There's a lot of chaos, mayhem, chaos, depending on which way you look at it, going on. And I'll tell you what, the bad actors really enjoy that. They try to take advantage of that. If we haven't seen enough of an uptick in threats, we're going to see more. At the end of the day, this is nothing more than a cat and mouse game that we play with the bad actors that are out there. We from the good guy side, good person side, we publish all of our vulnerabilities. We publish from a CISA perspective, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency here in the States. We publish a known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. So we know what's going on, and we can let the bad folks know that, hey, guess what? Here's all our vulnerabilities. And I did read an article one point in time that it takes them about 15 minutes to figure out a way to exploit that vulnerability. There's plenty of reports out there around organizations that have been hit, how they have been hit, what vulnerability was exploited. To be honest, I don't talk much about individual attacks anymore. There's just way too many of them. The other side of the coin here is I also don't give a whole lot of statistics. I don't talk about what's the average cost of a breach and some of the other, you get hit every 11 seconds or whatever the case may be, because at the end of the day, our customers that we're talking to understand that the threat is real. They understand that cyber is the new disaster. And in every conversation I have with customers, the biggest thing is they are looking for a solution. They're not looking for a product. The days of coming in and bolting on products and building individual use cases for things is over. And cyber that we're facing today, being the new disaster, there isn't an easy solution. If there was, we would have found it already. And we would have already solved this problem. We wouldn't be having this conversation. And Alicia wouldn't be giving away $2,500 later. So it's important, especially in the CSP and the MSP community, to take what I'm talking about today at a high level and make it your own. Build in what you bring to the table. The second part of my job is I enable our partners. And I talk all the time to our partners. Listen, I can tell you all the things that Dell is doing. I can do that all day long. But if you don't make it your own, it doesn't really give you that competitive edge. It doesn't give you that strategic differentiation. It doesn't provide you the ability to be that trusted advisor. And I tell partners all the time, listen, this solution is yours, powered by Dell. We're not delivering it. We can help. We're a great partner for that. We deliver the products and the services necessary. And I'll get more into those here as we talk, but cyber resilience really truly is a solution. It really truly is starting with IT security. And IT security is there to ensure that that information and assets of the organization are only used for legitimate purposes. And you see down there at the bottom, we've got the IT security matrix, we've got the cybersecurity framework, we have all those different, NERC and GDPR and NIST and all these different things that customers look to in terms of being able to ensure that their environment is safe. Well, the way that I put it is IT security is the tip of the spear. They're the front lines. They're the ones that lock the doors, lock the windows, turn on the alarm system should the bad actors get in. But it's not just IT security. Some of the things that we're facing today, and I actually just had this slide up yesterday with a large financial services customer. Listen, this isn't as easy as it once was, where we just had one little data center and life was good. And then we added, okay, great, we got a service provider now that's got a little plug into our environment. All right, now we got another area we've got to protect. Now we're working in a hybrid world. And unfortunately, the biggest thing that I see out there from organizations is this hybrid world that we are in. They have siloed organizations that operate the hybrid world. So you've got a cloud team, you've got an InfoSec team, you've got an application team, you've got an infrastructure team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's kind of the left hand doesn't talk to the right much anymore. And that's where we really get disjointed, and we don't actually work to shrink that attack surface. It actually becomes larger because nobody's talking to each other. One of the things that I mentioned in my meeting yesterday, it's time that we all get together, we all work together, and we build efficient operations. We build efficient solutions, not this segmented and siloed off, because somebody in the cloud might do something that affects the on-prem, but one doesn't take into account the other, where they think they're closing down that attack surface, but they actually open it up down here. And those are some of the issues that we run into, that I see out there. And this is a pretty common thing. It's a rarity to see organizations that actually work together. The other thing that we're facing down here is a lot of regulatory. Obviously, CISA came out last year for critical infrastructure providers here in the US. And by the way, CISA, part of Department of Homeland Security here in the US, they drive the policies within the US federal government, but they talk to all of their peers around the world, whether it's Canada, UK, most of Europe, Australia, New Zealand, et cetera, et cetera. And they work together to ensure that the policies are in the best interest. Well, now we've got Securities and Exchange Commission jumping onto that bandwagon, and publicly traded entities, if their board of directors and C-suite isn't highly involved, well aware, and proactively managing the risk of the organization, it's not official yet, but that's kind of what they're headed towards. There's going to be some real teeth and some real liability at the top of the food chain should somebody get hit. So this is driving a lot of that conversation. And I will tell you the same thing that I tell every partner. You need to get to the top of the food chain. You need to make them aware from a business perspective the problems that they could face, because that's going to drive a lot of the implementation in the organization it takes to really become cyber resilient. But IT security is just the start. And in fact, one of the things that Dell is doing, and this will be launched here in the next month and a half or so, I don't have an exact date yet, but we are building a zero trust center of excellence. Now, first thing I'll tell you is everybody loves to talk about the term zero trust. Here's the thing. When you're listening to vendors and OEMs and things along those lines, say, okay, here's the firewall for zero trust. Here's this for zero trust. Here's that for zero trust. Zero trust is not a product, it's an architecture. So what we're going to be able to do is we're actually going to be able to take a customer's environment and test it against the US Department of Defense approved architecture before you start putting that out there. And we're going to be able to simplify that zero trust cybersecurity adoption by streamlining the integration across IT environments, including you folks in our CSP and MSP world. That's huge. And it's not just focused on Dell products. This is going to be out at the Dreamport facility, which is in Maryland. Also happens to be someplace that the US Cyber Command operates out of in conjunction with MISI. So some neat stuff coming down the pipe there. But from a Dell perspective, we're in a very unique position because not only are we a company and we need to protect ourselves, we develop software. So we need to make sure that we have a secure development lifecycle. We have a supply chain. We need to make sure that stays secure and robust. But we provide network and servers and storage and hyperconverged and data protection and other things that all have to have security built into it. Jen Easterly, who's head of CISA, was at Consumer Electronics, CES, earlier this year. And one of the things she said is we need to do a better job of integrating APIs and things along those lines. That's what's going to reduce the attack surface. But really, just as I said before, the first place we need to go is we need to get as far up in the food chain as possible. Because if we can get business operations to drive the process, which they need to, because they need to identify what are the risks that the organization is facing and what are they willing to do and how far do they need to go to mitigate those risks. Once those guidelines are established, once that business direction is established, it's then the job of information security infrastructure owners and application owners to build the solution. It's not a bottom up, it is a top down. And cyber resilience, really, that's the outcome. And that's what incorporates the people, the process, and the technology into a holistic, across the entire organization framework that protects the entire business organization or entity. So our friends at Gartner, they came out with a research paper by their Maverick research team that says, you will be hacked, so embrace the breach. I can't tell you how many companies I sit in front of, and I talk to 200 to 300 a year that, oh yeah, no, we don't have interaction with our IT folks. They're good. They tell us they're fine. Well, here's the thing. First step, cybersecurity breaches are inevitable. If you didn't know that, just take a look at the list just over the last 2.5 years of all the companies that have been hit. These are companies that spend millions of dollars on IT security, yet they were breached. Cybersecurity breaches are inevitable. IT security, they have to be right 100% of the time. The bad actor only needs to be right once to accomplish their goals. So once they breach through the defenses, what's the next step? Where's the next layer of protection, defending in depth, in layers? Security and risk management leaders really need to think that they can't prevent all attacks. And just by throwing money and people at the problem isn't going to solve it. They need to ensure that they have resilience built in order to, when the worst happens, when the if becomes when, they have the efficient and ability that they need to recover in the shortest period of time. Let me give you an example. When we look at MITRE ATT&CK, for those that want to take a look at this, it's attack.mitre.org. They detail out not only the why, the tactics of what the bad actors are doing, but how they accomplish those tactics. Enterprise alone, 14 tactics with 193 techniques and 401 sub-techniques. These are enterprise-grade techniques. This isn't just some kid in their mother's basement. Well, sometimes it is. But really, truly, these are folks that put effort and energy into this. You've got mobile. Don't forget about your mobile phones. If they're corporate network mobile phones, you need to provide the protections there. And it needs to be unified with the rest of the protection strategy. They have their own techniques and sub-techniques. And one of the fastest growing areas, think oil and gas, electric, manufacturing, that OT environment, that operational technology, the SCADA level stuff. 12 tactics with 79 techniques, but this is growing very quickly. I see new vulnerabilities being released almost on 3 to 4 times a week at this point when it comes to industrial control systems. They're going after the stuff that makes it work. So we take a look and we take those tactics, and it starts with reconnaissance and resource development. And those are the folks that go out there and they find the way in, and either they take advantage of it themselves or they'll go ahead and sell it off, whether it's for a lump sum or maybe a percentage of the ransom. And keep in mind, we all love to talk about ransomware or a destructive level attack. They can actually just disrupt operations and not offer you a ransom to buy your way out of it. But there's a lot of other cyber attacks that we need to be aware of. You read a lot that, oh, this company lost 20 million different records. This company lost 3 million records. But there wasn't a ransom or a destructive level attack. We need to protect against all of these things. Ransomware is fun to talk about because it hits the news and it's the one that gets top of mind, but there's a lot more that goes on there. But once they've got the reconnaissance and the resource development, now you've got the initial access. They pick the locks on the doors and the windows. Now they're in your environment. All that's left now is the alarm system. But, guess what? One of those tactics that they're using is defense evasion to turn off the alarm. They use techniques like obfuscate, masquerade to accomplish that. Once they have that, now guess what? Now they get those credentials. Sorry, my artwork is not great. Now they get those credentials, and then they go in and they take a look and they discover the network. And as you see from the bottom, and this is from the IBM Tony Institute Cost of a Data Breach, the average dwell time is 207 days, where they're not even detected within the environment. During that time, they have a lot of time to discover. And if it is a destructive level attack, whether it's a ransomware event or not, they primarily go after three places. Number one, they go after any means that the organization has to recover, whether that is directly trying to compromise or corrupt the data or the device itself where that data lives, or indirectly, which leads me to number two. And those are your tier zero, the things that make the network work. Think Active Directory, domain controller, switch router configs, load balancer settings, host and build tools, Windows login. That's the stuff they go after, because if they can take away your command and control, you can't get to your recovery environment anyway, let alone have an environment to recover it to. Third thing they go after is they go after those critical applications, the things that drive the organization. Number one, because if it is a destructive level attack, they want to create as much chaos as possible. But number two, and if you look a little bit further here into the tactics, they go to collect and exfiltrate data, and that's typically where that valuable data is. Well, we can protect the data itself. We have that ability. You can protect the device that it lives on itself, as well as the data that lives there through things like immutability, retention lock, encryption. So if they do steal the data, as long as they don't have the keys, it's kind of worthless to them. So there's a lot of things you can do there. But at some point, that attack is going to be launched and you lose command and control of your environment. And the average recovery and containment period is 70 days. And that's where cyber recovery comes in. Cyber recovery, the job, the goal of cyber recovery, a lot like DR, disaster recovery or business continuity, is to shrink this time. The average is 70 days, almost 2.5 months. Take an event that's potentially weeks or months long and bring it down to a matter of days, if not a matter of hours. But here's the thing. With traditional data protection, disaster recovery, with a 207-day dwell time, you have to make the assumption that anything that is connected to the production environment, because again, they have credentials, is subject to compromise or corruption. If you can't get to your backups or your DR environment, you've got no way to start a recovery. That's one of the ways that cyber recovery is different. Why it is a purpose-built solution. I'll get more into that here in a minute. As I said, here's a lot of the things that can happen during that time. You could ensure all of your data survives. And that's the goal of data protection, by the way, is data survivability. But if you need a core environment, you've got to rebuild your AD and DNS and all the rest of the things to be able to re-enable your environment. That could take weeks, easily. So it's some of the things that we need to consider. From a Dell perspective, I talk a lot about what are we doing to ensure that we protect where data lives as well as what it lives on. And keep in mind, we work in a hybrid world. So we have unification across that public cloud, private cloud, infrastructure, platform, software as a service, on-prem, whatever it is, that we can augment what you bring to the table. And again, keep in mind, make this yours, but it's powered by Dell, the trusted partner you leverage to build this. So we've got things like multi-factor authentication built into the devices itself, built into the OS. By the way, speaking of the OS, it's restricted bash access. hash containers not recognized by malware, our own transport protocol, by the way, data domain, PowerProtect DD, that's the official new term for it, kind of the Swiss Army knife of data protection. Mainframe, IBMI, AIX, DB2, Commvault, Veritas, NetBackup, TSM Spectrum, Veeam. We can put all of that onto that device. And then once that device is there, we've got that secure ADL, DAP authentication, and everything else that we do to support protecting the box itself from a direct attack. We can protect the data. First and foremost is the mutability, retention lock compliance mode. We've had it since 2013. SEC, FDA, Sarbanes-Oxley, CFTC. Dual role authorization. So if somebody tries to run a sensitive or destructive command against the data or the device itself, requires a second level authorization from the security officer. So no one person can run a destructive or sensitive command. You got that management hardening, the local or external key management. We can send security logs to the SIM or SOAR environment because they need as much information as they can get to make that intelligent decision at the front lines. Catch that problem before it becomes one. That's the primary goal, obviously. But if somebody evades those defenses, this is the next level of protection. But at the end of the day, as I said before, if you can't get to your environment, let alone have an environment to recover to, immutability is not enough for a cyber event. In fact, PricewaterhouseCoopers came out with a post-incident review of Ireland's healthcare system attack. And one of the big things that they said, and you'll get a copy of these slides, and the links are right here. I would encourage everybody to read this report. One of the things that they said is offline backups or backups that are verified as inaccessible to attackers with full control of production IT. Remember that credential access I showed you? It's one of their tactics. It must be available for all critical systems, data and infrastructure, including core IT, the things that make your network work, such as Active Directory. But you also need a well-defined and tested restore procedure that includes verification of your ability to recover all systems to a common point in time. All systems to a common point in time. We talk a lot about recovery point and recovery time objectives, especially in business continuity. Cyber presents its own challenge there. We can talk in terms of recovery time, RTO, and recovery point, RPO, quite often. However, there's always going to be two variables as it pertains specifically to cyber events. Number one, how bad was the attack? How much damage was done? Number two, how well do you execute on that well-defined and tested restore procedure that includes verification of ability to recover all systems to a common point in time? Those are the two main factors that are going to affect your recovery time objective. So when we talk about, first and foremost, making sure data is available to recover, we talk about the ability to isolate. Now, you notice I didn't use the term create an air gap. And to be honest with you, I've stopped using that term. Biggest reason is everybody uses it and nobody means the same thing when they do. You can have somebody come up and say, hey, yeah, we create this air gap. We put a firewall there, or we're using VLANs to create this air gap. Well, there's kind of two problems with that. Number one, anytime in a regular backup environment, when you move data from point A to point B to point C, you're kind of pushing it along and it creates a record. Well, all the bad actors need to do is get into that record and then they follow the breadcrumbs. But number two, great, you did VLANing. Well, remember, I have full control of your production environment and I can change that VLAN. That's easy. Oh, you use firewalls. That's great. I already got past all those firewalls back there. What makes you think I can't get through this one? Anything that is connected to production environment is subject to compromise or corruption. Stop, end of discussion. It has to be isolated. It has to be physically and logically separate from production. And how we do that is very important. I'll get to that here in a minute. But then you need to make sure that Once you have that vaulted environment, you protect the integrity of that vault, you then need to protect the integrity of the data. And that's where the immutability comes in as well. You definitely want to be doing immutability within your production environment. 100%. You want to ensure data survivability. We'll talk about some of those best practices here in a minute. But that immutability now also preserves the integrity of the data within the integrity of the vault. And those two alone, isolation plus immutability, will give you a copy of data. But you need to make that assumption that that copy of data has probably been compromised or corrupted. The integrity has been affected. Well, as part of your incident response plan, and Gartner spells this out quite well, you recover that data, the most recent copy of data, into an isolated recovery environment, and you remediate it, you clean it. Any red team out there, that's exactly what they're going to do. And you want the most recent copy of data. You're not going to go back 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months to try to find that quote unquote clean copy. Number one, it's kind of like throwing darts in the dark. You don't know when during that dwell time they actually started doing that. But number two, you don't want that level of data loss. All data has a certain amount of shelf life, and the more frequently that data changes, think things like databases and such, the shorter that shelf life becomes. You're not going to go back more than 1, 2, maybe even 3 days. After that, the data is stale. The application's still good, but the data there is stale. However, what we've done then is we've added in an additional layer of detection, a layer of intelligence, utilizing heuristics and analytics and machine learning algorithms to be able to identify whether the integrity of the data has been compromised or corrupted due to malware. That's an important distinction. Due to malware. What we're looking for is we're looking at the metadata, the headers, and the content across 200 different analytics. We're looking for large changes in file size, obfuscated file names, higher levels of entropy, and a lot of other things. We don't necessarily look at signatures, definitions, hashes. That's InfoSec's job. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. So we have to take a different approach and do full content analytics in order to be successful. And in fact, we're hyper successful at over 99% with a false positive rate of less than 1. So how do we create that isolated environment? And this is where we kind of differentiate from the rest of the field. First and foremost, that replication plane, storage plane, and management plane are all separated. And that replication plane, that data path to go from source into vault is cryptographically secure. That is a DD to DD operation. Nothing else gets across. And the movement, the pull of that data is orchestrated from within the vault itself. The vault itself has its own sets of credentials, its least accessible policies, and other security controls, again, to ensure the integrity of that environment. We don't leave a trace in production as to where that additional copy went. We don't leave breadcrumbs, no console, no pointers or catalogs, no software knowledge of where that went to, and no backdoor access to that data. One of the hallmarks of PowerProtect DD is the simple fact that we can put more raw data onto a smaller amount of disk than anybody else out there. I don't care if it lives in the cloud, the AWS, the Azures, the Googles, the Alibabas, or on-prem. But that creates containers that malware cannot run because that data is not organized and there's no compute there to execute malware. And then we've got that advanced immutability that I talked about before, as well as network time protocol protections. Make sure you can't have clock drift. It's one of those sensitive or destructive commands that requires 2 levels of authorization. But ultimately, to take the solution from being reactive, you get hit, you've got an environment to recover to, or to recover from, to proactively looking at that data, that's machine learning. Looking at over 200 analytics that represent changes in value of the file content and metadata from one observation to the next. And then those are fed into the machine learning algorithms to make probabilistic decisions of data integrity. There are thousands of malware variants out there. But what a lot of people don't know is there's very common factors that they all attribute to. If we can identify those before the worst happens, find that problem before it becomes a problem, well, that just accelerates recovery even further. And in fact, the CyberSense lab, that machine learning algorithm has been trained on tens of millions of different data sets, including clean, corrupted, and suspected data. And we do control detonation of live ransomware wherever we get it, whether it's dark web, public subscription service, attack simulations based on academia. And our lab data sets represent over 6,000 ransomware variants as of this past December. And we add roughly about 80 new variants that we tested against every single month. Ultimately, we're taking the previous observation and we're comparing and contrasting it to the current observation. Machine learning algorithms correlate those 200 different statistics, and that is what gives us our hyper accurate predictability in order to determine, has the data been corrupted or compromised? Has the integrity been affected by malware? And if it has, we have the ability to detect it. We give you the information you need to investigate and give you the ability to recover in short order. Detection can be just a simple alert, whether it goes out onto a cyber recovery dashboard, an email alert, or a syslog event that can go out and work with a SIM or a source solution. The investigate, we give you the details, the who, the what, the when, and the where. I still got to reverse these two. Who, what, where, when. I like it the other way. But we give you all the tools that you need to get the forensics you need to remediate the production environment, get the bad actor out. Because once you have data available, you need a clean environment to recover it to and a clean set of data, leading me to the next one, recover. We already know where that clean set of data is. The most recent copy, by the way, for the least amount of data loss. Clean environment, clean data, put them back together. That's the goal. If you don't have a clean environment and or clean data and you try to put them back together, you're going to repropagate the event. We also offer incident response and recovery services. And for those that don't necessarily have this, you can leverage us for this. This is a retainer service. As I put it to our customers, every customer should have one of these, by the way, because not only are these the folks that come in because they do this every day and they add order to chaos, but on the flip side, by having them on retainer, you already know that they're going to show up at your front door when you call them. Some companies get so destroyed, they don't even have the ability to roll out a PO to get somebody to come in the front door to help them. But there's some proactive services up front so that we understand and acknowledge your environment. And then there's a block of hours behind so we can get going. One of the other things that this gives us from a Dell perspective is not only are we seeing the most recent attacks as they take place on a regular basis, and we can take that information and re-engineer it into our own cyber resilience strategy that protects Dell. But we can also ensure that we're providing the knowledge and the solutions and the thought leadership that our customers need to keep abreast of what's happening. Nobody just jumps into the deep end. You don't just say, okay, great, I'm going to do cyber resilience. I'm going to build this vault and we're just going to go do it. There needs to be a little bit of plan the work and work the plan. And the first thing you need to do is reduce the risk. And I tell customers all the time, let's take a look at what you have today and let's make sure we're making that efficient and we're doing all the best practices to ensure that we shrink that attack surface. We provide the most protection possible within the environment. That's things like proactive monitoring with things like managed detection and response. We have Cloud IQ that enables us to look literally down to the processor, to the RAM, to the disk level config changes. That's one of the new attack vectors. If you look at the most recent operational directive from CISA, they require federal government agencies now to look deeper into config level changes. So we have that capability. And again, that's information that we can send to InfoSec. And Data Protection Advisor that provides additional indicators that we just added here within the last couple of months. So let's say that file system file utilization changes and it deviates above or below the moving 2-week average and extends beyond the thresholds you've set forth. That could be a leading indicator that you are under attack. There is no one factor that determines are you under attack or not, but you get as much of that information as you can to enable the InfoSec team to make the best educated decision they can. Second thing is data protection best practices, because that's the next layer of defense. Once IT security has been evaded, well, they're going to go after your data. So we need to make sure that we limit unauthorized access to anywhere where that data lives or what it lives on. We need to make sure that we've instituted that dual role authorization with a security officer. We've instituted immutability with retention lock, and we've protected the source of network time so that they can't clock drift to remove the lock. But the one everybody forgets about is that data encryption, not only in flight, but at rest. And we have FIPS, federal 140-2 certifications around that data encryption. So even if they do exfiltrate that data, think healthcare, think financial services, there's large fines for those organizations should they expose personally identifiable information. Well, if we encrypt that data and it's not usable without the key, it protects them. Then we build an initial vault. Just get started. First and foremost, it's those critical rebuild materials. It's that tier 0, the things that make the network work. Here's a good example of what those look like. Without any of this, you don't have anything to start from, and it becomes a rebuild versus a restore process for things like Active Directory, DNS, and Windows logins, and physical and virtual platforms, and switch and router configs, and all those things that go along with it. Not only should you be backing that up on a regular basis, but that should be part of your isolated environment. And then at least at a high level, those 2 or 3 applications that the business needs no matter what. You might not know exactly how those all get put back together again. You might not have that ability to restore operations. That comes in phase 2, but at least we've protected and reduced the risk. And then making sure that there's an incident response and recovery retainer. At that point, now we focus on your ability to restore operations to a common point in time. Again, going back to Price Waterhouse. We look at doing things like business impact analysis. We want to achieve minimum viable operations for a cyber event. When we look at backups out there, okay, we look at protecting 100% of the environment. When we look at disaster recovery or business continuity, that still lives on the network. But we want a faster recovery point and recovery time objective, so we leverage replication versus traditional backups. Well, with that, you're only going to be doing somewhere between 60 to 90%, because that other 10 to 40%, you can go get those from backups because you're tiering off those applications. You're doing tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. And each one of those tiers has a specific recovery point, recovery time. With cyber, our goal is to get back up and running as fast as humanly possible. So you take somewhere between 15 and 40%, and that's what goes in the environment. Because once you're back up and running, and we've done those data protection best practices to ensure data survivability, we can get the rest of the way back from there. So that's why we focus just on minimum viable. And by the way, we keep it for a shorter period of time because we're not going too far back to go find that data. We do the dependency mapping. Now we've got the order that everything, including the inflows and outflows, and then we create that cyber incident response plan. The cyber incident response plan is a lot like a disaster recovery runbook for tier 0, critical rebuilds, and tier 1, minimum viable. However, there's going to be a lot more hands and eyes, and there's going to be a lot more people doing things simultaneously than in a DR scenario. So it needs to be somewhat of a well-orchestrated symphony. And that's also where incident response and recovery comes in. At that point, now that you have a plan and you've established your ability to recover, let's say the business wants it even faster. Now let's look at ways to accelerate that plan. You can't accelerate something you don't have. So let's look at ways to accelerate that plan. Things like clean rooms. There's your clean environment that you know is clean, and automation to be able to accelerate processes, not automate for automate's sake, but institute automation where it makes sense. We've been doing this for a while. Data protection alone, we've been a Gartner leader even before Magic Quadrant for 23 years. We introduced retention lock over 10 years ago now. We created the first isolated recovery solution. Yes, the initials for that are IRS. I don't know who came up with that one. But what you saw today was developed and launched in 2018. I actually started working with it in 2017 when I was still at IBM, now Kyndryl. And I helped them develop their managed services platform. And I do that for a lot of partners today, CSPs and MSPs today, help them build that capability within their practice. I can tell you how good our stuff works and whatnot. It helps to have a little bit of backup beyond the fact that everybody out there, they're number one, including CISA and a lot of the big fours, and you saw it with Price Waterhouse. They basically tell you need to have an isolated or offline environment. But Sheltered Harbor is a certification that was built by the financial services industry for the financial services industry. Not only was Dell the first solution partner of Sheltered Harbor, we are still the first and only endorsed solution by Sheltered Harbor to achieve their certification as it pertains to a cyber vault. And we can deploy this in many ways, whether it's multi-cloud, whether it's in AWS, Azure, Google, combination of all the above, private cloud, on-prem, doesn't matter. We can do that. But no matter where the vault is deployed, three things remain the same: isolation, immutability, and intelligence. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alicia, and she's going to walk you through a little bit about the Dell Expert Network. Alicia?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks for all the great information. I know that we have a full novel that's being written in the chat, so it sounds like your conversation and presentation really got some wheels and gears turning. I'll just remind everyone that we are doing the giveaway as soon as we're done here with this quick presentation. If you have any questions for Jason, we will have a few minutes for Q&A, so make sure to drop those in the Q&A box. He's a great resource, like I said. If anyone is attending Connect IT Global, Jason will be doing a breakout session there as well, so feel free to reach out to me. If you are a Dell Expert Network member, we do have discounted tickets to that show. So I just wanted to briefly cover the Dell Expert Network. My name is Alicia Bowling. I am the US Dell Expert Network Program Manager, and our program is the one that sponsored this webinar today and got Jason on. So content development and kind of bringing thought leadership content to the MSPs in our program is a core value of what we do and what we bring. But if we have any DEN members in the chat, feel free to raise your hand. I'd love to know that we have some members on here. And if Jason, you want to take us to the next slide, we'll just briefly cover, if you're not familiar with DEN or haven't heard of us before, just kind of the 5 main benefits that we give you as an MSP. So this program has been around for about 4.5 years now. And what we discovered is that we had our traditional partner program at Dell, but there were a lot of MSPs in the market that didn't really identify with that business model anymore. They were moving more into managed services. They were scaling down their break fix business, and they just weren't interested or as interested in procuring and selling hardware anymore because margins were shrinking, etc. I see some DN members in here, so thanks for joining us, guys. So we created this program as an alternative program at Dell for MSPs, and this program is built for MSPs specifically servicing the small business market. So if you're servicing customers 0 to 100 employees, this is kind of the sweet spot for you. And here on the screen are just the benefits that you get for free as soon as you sign up before you spend a penny with us. So there are some additional benefits that you'll get as you grow in the program and kind of level up within our different tiers. But this is what you get, day one. I will have my contact info on the last slide so you guys can screenshot that. But a big differentiation of our program is that from day one, we give you a dedicated tech advisor. So this is unlike any other programs within Dell for MSPs. You will have that dedicated team to help you. They're connected with people like Jason if you're interested in cyber, if you're interested in our enterprise solutions, if you're interested in software, whatever it is that you need, those dedicated tech advisors are connected to those teams to help you. We have a Tech Direct portal that expedites you guys submitting support tickets. You can submit those on your own, and you can self-dispatch replacement parts for your endpoints that you're covering. We have a member portal that you'll get access after joining. In webinars like this and different white papers and ebooks and things that my team creates, this PDF document in this webinar, after it's recorded, will go into that portal so that our members who may not be able to join or couldn't watch it, they can go back in there and reference it. So there's great marketing materials, great sales materials in there for you and your techs to review when we release new products and things like that. Those technical documents are loaded in there, so before you sell a product to your customer, you have that information at your fingertips. We also offer you rewards. So this is an affiliates program, so you get rewards for recommending your end users to purchase Dell technologies, and you can earn up to $20,000 a year. A lot of people say, oh, up to, that's a nice disclaimer there, but I will say I have a lot of members, our elite members, who do cap out on that $20,000 a year. So it is attainable if you are recommending significant business over to Dell. And then the last one is our benefit with Dell Financial Services. In the economic times that we're in, people are trying to preserve capital. They're trying not to spend their cash. And so your end users may be interested in what financing options they have for their OEM products. So we do offer Dell Financial Services through this program. You can actually have your end users finance your services with their hardware as well. So if you are charging them for installation, deployment, etc., you can send us your statement of work and we can include that in your end users financing plan so you get paid in full off the top. If you go to the next slide, Jason, this is just a good graphic because the most frequently asked question is, what MSP is a good fit for the Dell Expert Network program? And that is, 100%, if you're not reselling hardware and you want to offload that procurement process onto Dell, your end users will talk directly to your account manager. You'll be involved every step of the way. That customer will be linked to your account. So if there are any updates or anything that comes through, you will be notified. If you are still on the hardware resale side, then our Dell Technologies Partner Program is likely the best fit for you. But I see a lot of folks that are right there in the middle, that they still have some hardware resale. They are transitioning over to more MSP. So in that case, please reach out to me and have a conversation. I would love to kind of flesh out your business and what your upcoming priorities for this year are and help you decide which program is the best fit for you. And so the last slide we have here is just my contact information. I'm super active on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me on there. You can go to our landing page. I just gave the very high program details today. You can go to our landing page to learn more about the benefits, or you can send me an email directly if you're interested in joining. I can get you connected with an account manager. Alternatively, if you're interested in any of the solutions that Jason was talking about today, feel free to send me an email as well. I can get you connected with him and his team to get you some quotes or so that you can learn more. I know a couple people asked about the recording and the PDF documents. All of that will be available, that Jeff will be handling after the presentation. So without further ado, I think we have a few questions here, and then we can get over to the giveaways. So looks like the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rodell just asked, would this Dell Expert Network be different or affect my membership as a premier reseller?
Yeah, that is I think, number one frequently asked question. So yes, it's a different program. You cannot be in both programs at the same time. So the Premier Reseller Division is you are a reseller or distributor of Dell products. And our program is an affiliates program. So you would recommend that your end users purchase directly from Dell under your account. So you wouldn't be procuring the hardware and reselling it. You would be recommending and they would be procuring that directly. So I hope that answers that question.
Beautiful. All right. Time for a drawing.
Hey, Alicia, just one question, because I know Paul was asking this, is how does it work with that do they register deals there so that someone from Dell's not contacting that person or someone outside of it's not contacting, or how do they do that? I know you guys have some things in place with your different programs.
Yeah. So deal registration works directly under your end user customer. So you would register that deal. Your account manager would help you register that deal directly under that customer, essentially to protect it. So your account manager would handle that with you. In this program, you don't register the deal directly because you're not reselling our product, but your account manager would help you register that deal on your behalf under your end user's profile. So that's a great question.
All right, great. And we're just right up against the top of the hour. So I've got 5 winners. I just double checked it just a second ago here to make sure that they are still on the call. And so without further delay, our $500 winners, first up from the company is Computer Age. It's Todd Moran. Todd's one of our MSP Launch Academy customers or members with Technology Marketing Toolkit. Congratulations, Todd. Next up, and I saw he was just asking a question just a few minutes ago here, Brian Sulo from Clock Tower Technology. Brian's one of our Accelerators Club members. Our third winner, Doyle Stutzman, Compass Computer Group. Doyle's an Accelerators Club member. And then the next one, he might be in, this next one might be in a colder area than you are, Jason. Out of Montana, I'm guessing Montana may or may not be colder right now than Minneapolis. Michael Marlowe with Info Systems or Information Systems of Montana. Here, Michael's a Toolkit member. And then lastly, from Valen Computer Products, Greg Valen. Greg is our 5th winner. So someone from our team from MSP Success or from Technology Marketing Toolkit will be connecting with all of you and getting those out. I believe we've got everyone's address on there, so we'll be able to get those direct. Michael said it's topping out at 33 degrees today in Montana, so it's actually kind of balmy in Montana for March 16th, perhaps, Michael. So thank you for everyone being on. Great interaction that we had on today's call. Jason, thank you for being on today on this one and setting aside basketball for an hour here. Great content that you had. As Alicia mentioned, we will be posting up the webinar and also getting out a PDF of that document. I know a lot of you asked for that. Ton of great information that Jason had on there. So we'll be getting that recording and the PDF posted out to all of you that were on the webinar and those that registered for it today. So thanks again to everyone. We'll be back in just 2 weeks from now on March 30th with our next MSP Success webinar series. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you, everybody.